Picture this. Stone walls slick with the crimson gleam of fresh blood. Chains groaning like the damned in eternal torment. Shadows twisting into shapes of agony that no light could banish. His throne was forged in the fires of fear, but it would become his own gilded tomb, crumbling under the weight of screams unspoken. And that night, when the Empire's heart was torn asunder, the scars would etch themselves into the annals of time, forever altering the course of human cruelty. Hit subscribe now. 80% miss these shadowed truths from history's abyss. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and what ancient horror chills you most? Now, let us begin. In the cradle of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carved life from dust, the Assyrian Empire rose like a colossus of terror, its kings wielding power not just with iron fists, but with blades that peeled flesh from bone. Ashurnasirpal II, ruler from 883 to 859 BCE, epitomized this reign of dread. His palaces adorned with bas-reliefs depicting the flaying of rebels, skins stretched taut over city gates as warnings to the defiant. This was no mere punishment. It was a symphony of suffering where the condemned were stripped alive, their dermis ripped away in slow, deliberate strips, blood pooling in rivulets that stained the earth red. The air would thicken with the metallic tang of gore, screams echoing off blood-drenched stones that seemed to pulse with every tortured heartbeat. 90% don't know this bloody secret, but you're about to uncover it. The Assyrians perfected impalement as a tool of psychological warfare, driving greased stakes through the bodies of captives, avoiding vital organs to prolong the agony for days. Imagine the victim hoisted high, gravity pulling them deeper onto the spike, flesh tearing inch by inch as bones cracked under the strain. His paranoia, born of endless conquests, whispered that every shadow hid a betrayer, turning ambition into a rotting cage that imprisoned his soul. Yet, in a haunting irony, the kings who built empires on broken bodies often met ends as brutal. Ashurbanipal's heirs fractured the realm, their legacies ash before they drew breath. The crimson echoes of these acts reverberate through time, mirroring today's regimes where surveillance states flay privacy from citizens, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. But the cruelty had only just begun. In one extreme shock, a rebel leader's skin was nailed to Nineveh's walls, blood spraying as nails pierced quivering flesh, his final gasps painting the stones in a macabre fresco. His throne was a scaffold of screams. Empires rise on rivers of blood, but drown in their own crimson tide. Flesh yields to fear, but bones remember the blade. As the sun set on Assyrian battlefields, littered with the impaled forms of the vanquished, one could almost hear the rusted chains of fate rattling in the wind. Warriors, their armor splashed with the gore of the fallen, dragged prisoners to the execution grounds where whips lashed skin into ribbons, exposing raw muscle that twitched in the open air. The psychological dive was brief. Ambition festered into madness, a delusion that power could conquer death itself. Sensory details assaulted the senses, the acrid stench of burning flesh from branded traitors, the slick warmth of blood underfoot. Irony twisted like a knife. They chained others to walls, unaware their own dynasty was shackled to inevitable decay. What would you do if faced with such a fate? Fight or beg for mercy? Comment below and hit that like button if this chills your blood. Was Ashurnasirpal's terror justified as empire building, or was he doomed by his own brutality? Vote in the poll above. Chains of Crimson. From the shadowed remnants of Assyria's fall, the Babylonian Empire emerged, its ziggurats towering like blood-soaked monoliths against the Mesopotamian sky, where Hammurabi's code etched justice into clay with the sharpness of a dagger. King Nebuchadnezzar II, reigning from 605 to 562 BCE, enforced laws that drowned adulterers in the Euphrates as divine offerings, their bodies bloating in the current, eyes wide in eternal accusation. This major beat of codified cruelty wove religion into retribution, where infidelity meant a watery grave, lungs burning as river gods claimed their due, bubbles rising like silent screams. The air hung heavy with the scent of incense masking decay, but beneath it lurked the rot of ambition unchecked. Hammurabi's paranoia manifested in an eye-for-an-eye ethos, yet it spiraled into excess. Thieves had hands severed, blood spurting in arcs that soaked the executioner's robes. A haunting irony. The king who sought order through law built prisons of fear, chained to his own decrees like a prisoner in his palace. His code was carved in stone, but bled from the veins of the condemned. Justice wears a crown of thorns, dripping crimson regret. In the river's embrace, betrayal finds its final breath. But what happened next defies imagination. In a gore-heavy shock, a blasphemer's tongue was torn out with hot pincers, flesh ripping in a spray of blood that painted the temple floor, his muffled howls echoing like crimson echoes through the halls. 90% overlook this savage truth, but here it unfolds. Babylonians gutted the disloyal, entrails spilling in steaming coils, a symbolic purge of inner treachery. The psychological insight pierced sharp, delusion that God's demanded flesh fueled a madness that consumed the empire from within. Sensory symbols abounded. Crowns seemed to throb with the pulse of sacrificed hearts, gold decaying under the weight of accumulated sins. These ancient horrors cast long shadows on modern justice systems, where capital punishments still echo the brutality of ritual drownings, questioning if we've truly escaped the river's pull. Fast-paced, the executions rolled on, whips cracking against bare backs, skin splitting like overripe fruit, blood flecking the crowd. Traitors were blinded with red-hot irons, eyes popping in bursts of fluid, agony that seared the soul. The motif persisted. Blood-drenched stones of Babylon's walls bore witness, absorbing the essence of the fallen. What price would you pay to uphold such laws? Your humanity or your throne? Share in the comments and smash that like if this grips you. Was Hammurabi's code a beacon of justice or a veil for madness? Vote in the poll above. Rivers of retribution. Across the vast deserts where winds whispered of forgotten empires, the Persian Achaemenid dynasty sprawled like a web of rusted chains, ensnaring foes in webs of exquisite torment under kings like Darius III, who ruled from 522 to 486 BCE. The major historical beat pulsed with scaphism, a punishment where rebels were force-fed milk and honey, trapped between boats in stagnant waters, insects devouring their flesh alive as maggots burrowed into wounds. This was no swift end. Days of festering agony, skin sloughing off in putrid sheets, screams lost to the buzz of flies. Paranoia gnawed at Darius like the vermin he unleashed, his ambition a decaying gold that poisoned alliances. Irony dripped like blood. He who buried blasphemers alive in sand, suffocating under earth's weight, was himself entombed in history's judgment, his empire crumbling like shifting dunes. His power was a boat adrift in crimson waters. Betrayal festers like wounds in the sun. Thrones built on bones sink into sand. The cruelty intensified. In a visceral shock, a liar's eyes were filled with molten gold, metal searing through sockets in a hiss of vaporized flesh, blood and steam mingling in a horrific plume. 90% ignore this Persian savagery, but it reveals impalement on sharpened stakes, bodies hoisted as warnings, flesh tearing as gravity claimed its toll. Psychological delusion reigned. Kings saw gods in their cruelty, blind to the madness that eroded their rule. Sensory horrors overwhelmed. The sticky sweetness of honey masking the rot, crowns pulsing with the heartbeat of impending doom. Echoing into today, these tortures parallel modern isolation tactics in prisons, where solitude burrows like insects into the mind. Action surged, flaying sessions where skins were peeled in public spectacles, blood spraying across cheering crowds, bones exposed to the merciless sun. Crucifixions lined roads, victims gasping as shoulders dislocated, rusted chains binding wrists that bled raw. Would you endure such torments for rebellion or kneel to the crown? Comment your thoughts and like if this haunts you. Was Darius's empire forged in genius or doomed by delusion? Vote in the poll above. Boats of decay. Far from the sands of Persia, in the emerald jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya civilization throbbed with the rhythm of blood-drenched stones, their pyramids rising as altars to gods insatiable for hearts. From 250 to 900 CE, rulers like those at Chichen Itza orchestrated human sacrifices, ripping still-beating organs from chests in rituals that bound society to the divine. Captives, painted blue, ascended steps slick with gore, priests plunging obsidian knives deep, blood cascading in warm torrents down the stones. Ambition rotted into delusion for Maya kings, who believed their blood sustained the cosmos, paranoia driving endless wars for victims. Irony carved deep. They who tore hearts to appease gods saw their dynasties broken by droughts, the very heavens they fed turning vengeful. His altar was a throne of pulsing crimson. Madness beats in the heart of power. Sacrifices feed gods, but starve the soul. What happened next defies the imagination. In a graphic shock, a victim's chest was split open, ribs cracking like dry branches, heart yanked free in a gush of arterial spray that anointed the priest's face. 90% miss this Maya brutality, but evidence from cenotes reveals. Bodies hurled into sacred sinkholes, drowning in darkness amid fractured limbs. Psychological insight flashed. Devotion twisted into madness, a crown that weighed heavy with illusory burdens. Sensory symbols lingered, the metallic scent of blood mingling with copal smoke, stones echoing with final thuds. These rites mirror today's fanaticisms, where ideologies demand sacrifices, questioning the line between faith and folly. Pacing quickened, decapitations in ball games, heads rolling down pyramids, blood pooling in ritual basins. Flaying of nobles, skins worn in dances, flesh-ripping agony preserved in codices. In the wind down, the crimson echoes fade, blood-drenched stones crumbling to dust under time's relentless march. What price do we pay for power today, when echoes of ancient madness still whisper in our halls? Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe for more bloody truths and ring the bell to never miss a whisper from the archive. Altars of Agony.